The stars looked peaceful through the bridge windows of the Harmony's Edge. Captain Taman Park stood watching them, his hands behind his back. The diplomatic ship moved quietly through space toward Nexus Prime Station. This was supposed to be humanity's chance for peace. "Captain, we're getting those strange readings again," said So Young Nam from her communication station. She was young, but very good at her job. "The Vortex ships are still following us." Taman nodded. He had noticed the alien ships too. They kept their distance but never left. "How many?" "At least 12 that I can detect. But there might be more using stealth." Ambassador Ji-Woo Kim walked onto the bridge. She wore the formal blue uniform of the diplomatic corps. Her face looked calm, but Tae-min could see worry in her eyes. "Captain, how long until we reach the station?" 6 hours, Ambassador." Ji-Woo moved to stand beside him at the window. "Tell me honestly, Captain, do you think they really want peace?" Tae-min was quiet for a moment. He had fought in the border wars against the Vortex 3 years ago. He remembered their brutal attacks on human colonies. "I think they want something. Whether it's peace, that's another question." Down in engineering, Yunho Choi was studying the sensor data from the Vortex ships. The readings made no sense. The alien vessels were using more power than needed for simple travel. It looked like they were charging weapons systems. But why? Would they do that during peace talks? "Donghyun, come look at this," he called to the young man helping him. Donghyun Lee hurried over. He was Ambassador Kim's aide, but he loved learning about ship systems. "What do you see? These power readings from the Vortex ships? They're not acting like escorts. They're acting like—" Yunho paused. "Like hunters." Meanwhile, in her quarters, Ambassador Ji-Woo was reading reports about the Vortex Empire. The aliens were tall and strong with thick scales and sharp claws. They had conquered dozens of worlds, but they had never faced humans in a real war. Only small fights on the edges of space. The reports worried her. Every species the Vortex had met either joined their empire or got destroyed. There was no middle ground. The Vortex believed that strong species ruled and weak species served. They thought humans were weak because human colonies had fallen to their attacks, but those colonies had been small mining towns with no real defenses. The Vortex had never seen what humans could really do when they were truly threatened. A message came through the ship's communication system. It was from Admiral Insu Bay on Earth. "Ambassador Kim, this is a private message. Our intelligence suggests the Vortex are planning something big. All their fleets are moving. Be very careful at these talks." Ji-Woo felt cold. She had hoped for real peace negotiations. Now it seemed like humanity was walking into a trap. But they had to try. War with the Vortex Empire would cost millions of lives. On the bridge, Tae-min was talking with his senior officers. "So Young, keep monitoring all communications, even the encrypted ones." "I'm trying, Captain, but their encryption is very advanced." "Do your best, Yunho. How are our defensive systems?" The engineer's face was serious. "All working perfectly, Captain. But if they really want to attack us, our shields won't last long against 12 ships. I know, but we're not here to fight. We're here to prevent a war." Hours passed slowly. The Harmony's Edge moved closer to Nexus Prime Station. The station was huge, built by many different alien species working together. It was supposed to be neutral ground where all species could meet safely. As they approached, more ships came into view. There were vessels from dozens of different worlds, but most of them were Vortex warships. They surrounded the station like a wall of metal and weapons. "Captain," So Young said quietly, "I'm counting over 200 Vortex ships." Taemin felt his stomach drop. 200 ships for peace talks? That was not normal. That was an invasion force. Ambassador Ji-Woo joined him on the bridge again. She had changed into her formal diplomatic robes. "How does it look, Captain?" "Like we're seriously outnumbered." She nodded calmly. "Then we better make sure these talks work." The Harmony's Edge docked with Nexus Prime Station without incident, but as they connected to the station, alarms started going off on other human ships throughout the galaxy. So Young was receiving emergency messages from Earth, the colonies everywhere. Captain, something big is happening. I'm getting reports of Vorthak fleets moving toward all human worlds. Taemin and Jiwoo looked at each other. This was not just peace talks. This was the beginning of something much worse. How long do we have? Jiwoo asked. According to these reports, the Vorthak fleets will reach our major colonies in about 3 days. Jiwoo straightened her shoulders. Then I have 3 days to save our species. As they prepared to leave the ship for the station, Dong-hyun approached the ambassador. Ma'am, what if the talks don't work? Jiwoo looked at the young man. He was smart and brave, but still young. He had never seen real war. Then we pray that humanity is stronger than the Vorthaks think we are. They walked toward the airlock that would take them into the station. Behind them, the Harmony's edge sat like a small island in an ocean of enemy ships. Around the galaxy, millions of humans went about their normal lives, not knowing that their survival depended on what happened in the next few days. High Commander Kethvar of the Vorthak Empire watched from his flagship as the human diplomatic ship docked. The humans had come just as predicted. They were so predictable. Faced with superior force, they would talk and negotiate and finally surrender. His species had conquered the galaxy by understanding this simple truth. All species were the same when faced with overwhelming power. They all broke. They all surrendered. Humans would be no different. Soon the human problem would be solved forever. The talks would fail, as planned. Then the final attack would begin. In less than a week, there would be no more human colonies. No more human ships, no more human resistance. Kethvar had fought humans before. They died just like any other species. They were nothing special. He was about to learn how wrong he was. The great assembly hall of Nexus Prime was filled with representatives from across the galaxy. Ambassador Jiwoo Kim sat at the human delegation table, looking calm despite the hundreds of Vorthak warriors surrounding them. The air felt heavy, with tension. High Commander Kethvar stood at the center of the hall. He was massive even for a Vorthak. His dark scales gleamed under the lights and his yellow eyes showed no emotion. When he spoke, his voice echoed through the chamber. The galactic hegemony has been patient with the human problem, he began. Your species spreads across space like a disease. You fight wars. You resist our guidance. This cannot continue. Jiwoo stood up slowly. Commander, humanity seeks only peaceful coexistence. We have prepared several proposals for mutual cooperation. Kethvar made a sound that might have been laughter. Cooperation? Your species knows only conflict. We have seen your colonies fight our forces. We have seen your aggression. Those were defensive actions, Jiwoo replied. You attacked our settlements first. We brought order. Your people chose chaos instead. Kethvar activated a holographic display showing a map of the galaxy. Red dots marked human worlds. This is our final offer. All human colonies outside the Sol system will be evacuated. Your species will remain in your home system under our protection. You have 72 hours to begin compliance. The hall erupted in whispers. Even the neutral alien species looked shocked. This was not a peace negotiation. This was a surrender demand. Jiwoo kept her voice steady. And if we refuse, then humanity will be removed from the galaxy permanently. Back on the Harmony's edge, So Young Nam was monitoring communications from across human space. The reports were getting worse by the hour. Vorthak fleets were positioning themselves around every major human world. Captain, she called to Taemin, I'm getting confirmation. There are Vorthak battle groups moving toward Earth, New Tokyo, Haven Colony, all of our major settlements. Taemin studied the tactical display. How many ships total? Over 5,000, sir. This isn't just an attack force. This is genocide. In the station's security center, Minjun Seo was watching the same data. As head of station security, he had access to all military intelligence. What he saw made his blood run cold. The Vorthaks had been planning this for months, maybe years. They never wanted peace, he said to his aide. This was always about wiping us out. Back in the assembly hall, Jiwoo was presenting humanity's counterproposal. She offered technology exchanges, trade agreements, shared research projects, anything to avoid war. Kethvar listened without interest. When she finished, he simply said, "Your 72 hours begin now." That was when another Vorthak officer approached him with a communication device. Kethvar listened, then smiled, showing his sharp teeth. "It seems there has been a change of plans," he announced to the hall. "To demonstrate the futility of human resistance, we will now show you what happens to those who defy the hegemony." The main display screen activated. It showed a view from space of Kepler 442b, a human mining colony. The world looked peaceful, from orbit, with white clouds swirling over green continents. "This colony has 50,000 human residents," Kethvar said. "They will serve as an example." Suddenly, bright flashes appeared around the planet. Vorthak warships had opened fire. The bombardment was brutal and systematic. Cities burned. The atmosphere began to glow from the heat of the attacks. In the assembly hall, several alien delegates gasped in horror. This was not warfare. This was slaughter. Hyejin Kung, a colonial administrator who had escaped from Kepler 442b just days before, watched in shock as her homeworld died. She saw the mining facility where she had worked for 10 years disappear in a ball of fire. She saw the school where human children played vanish in seconds. "You monsters," she whispered. Jiwoo stood frozen as she watched the destruction. 50,000 people, families, children, all dead to make a point. Kethvar looked pleased. "This is the fate of all human worlds if you do not comply. Surrender. Now, and we will be merciful. Continue to resist, and every human colony will share this fate." But something unexpected happened. Instead of breaking down or begging for mercy, Jiwoo's face went completely calm. Her eyes became cold as ice. "You have just made the biggest mistake in galactic history," she said quietly. Kethvar laughed. "Empty threats from a defeated species. We're not defeated yet." Across human space, the same scene was being broadcast. On Earth, in the military headquarters, Admiral Insube watched children die on his screens. His aide saw tears in the old soldier's eyes. "Sir, what are your orders?" Insu was quiet for a long moment. Then he picked up his communication device and sent a message to every human military commander in the galaxy. "All restrictions are lifted. Use any means necessary. Make them pay for what they've done." On the mining ship Far Horizon, Captain Wu Jin Nam received the same message. He had been evacuating civilians from frontier worlds for the past week. Now he understood why. The military had known this was coming. "Change of plans," he announced to his crew. "We're not just running anymore." On the agricultural world of New Seoul, Colonial Governor Sun Ho Kim was watching the news reports when Vorthak ships appeared in his system. He activated the planetary defense network, but he knew it would not be enough. He sent one final message to Earth. "They want our worlds? They can have the ashes." In the assembly hall, Kethvar was still gloating about his easy victory. "You, see how simple this is. Surrender, and your species lives. Fight, and you die." Jiwoo looked directly at him. "You don't understand humans at all, do you?" "I understand weakness when I see it. What you just did wasn't a show of strength. It was a declaration of total war. And humans are very, very good at total war." Kethvar's expression changed slightly. For the first time, he looked uncertain. "Your species has never faced anything like what's coming for you," Jiwoo continued. "You think you've seen humans fight? You've seen nothing. What you just did to those children, we're going to make you regret it for the rest of your very short lives." The other alien delegates in the hall began to look nervous. They could hear something in the human ambassador's voice that the Vorthaks seemed to miss. It was not fear or desperation. It was promise. 72 hours, Jiwoo said. "You won't last 72 days. She walked out of the hall, followed by the rest of the human delegation. Behind them, Kethvar stood confused. The humans were supposed to surrender after seeing such a display of power. Instead, they seemed almost eager for war. As Jiwoo reached the Harmony's edge, she received a message from Earth. It was from the President herself. Ambassador, you are authorized to inform the Vorthax that humanity officially rejects their ultimatum. All human forces are now free to engage. Jiwoo smiled grimly. The Vorthax had wanted to see what humans were capable of. Now they were going to find out. The Vorthax expected immediate surrender after destroying Kepler 442b. Instead, they got silence from human space. Not the silence of defeat, but something much more dangerous. The silence of preparation. On Nexus Prime Station, Kyung-ho Lim was explaining human history to a group of worried alien delegates. As a historian aboard the Harmony's edge, he understood what the Vorthax had just awakened. You don't understand, he told them. Most species fight to win territory or resources. Humans are different. When we face total extinction, we fight to make the enemy pay the highest price possible. A Zilani delegate looked confused. But surely they will surrender to save lives? Kyung-ho shook his head. In our history, we have a term called total war. It means everything becomes a weapon. Every factory, every ship, every person. The entire species becomes dedicated to destroying the enemy. That sounds insane, said another alien. Maybe. But it works. Back on Earth, the transformation had already begun. Yoonji Park, who had been designing entertainment systems just days before, was now converting her factory to produce weapons. Across the planet, similar changes were happening everywhere. Car factories started making tank parts. Toy manufacturers began producing explosive devices. Even food processing plants were being modified to create military supplies. The entire human economy was shifting to war production in just hours. How is this possible so fast? Asked her supervisor. We've done this before, Yoonji replied, not looking up from her work. Our ancestors figured out how to do this in World War II. We just got better at it. On the cargo ship Far Horizon, Captain Woo Jin Nam was meeting with other civilian ship captains. They were supposed to be running evacuation missions, but now they had a different job. The military gave us new orders, he told them. We're not just evacuating civilians anymore. We're positioning assets. What kind of assets? Asked Captain Bo Ra Yoon from the merchant vessel Sweet Dreams. Woo Jin smiled grimly. The kind that go boom. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, Vorthak fleets were beginning their systematic assault on human colonies. They expected each world to surrender quickly when faced with superior firepower. Instead, they found something they had never encountered before. The first shock came at the mining world of Titan's Rest. When the Vorthak fleet arrived, they demanded immediate surrender. The human defenders refused. When the Vorthaks began their bombardment, they expected the colony to give up after the first few strikes. Instead, the humans fought back with everything they had. Mining lasers became weapons. Construction equipment became mobile artillery. Even civilian transports loaded with explosives were rammed into Vorthak ships. Colonial Administrator Jae-ho Song sent one final message before his command center was destroyed. Every meter costs blood. Make them pay. On the agricultural world of New Seoul, Governor Sun Ho Kim was implementing something the Vorthaks had never seen before. As enemy forces landed, the humans began destroying their own infrastructure. Burn the crops, he ordered. Poison the water supplies, collapse the mines. If they want our world, they get nothing but dirt and ash. This was not how conquered species were supposed to behave. They were supposed to try to save their homes, not destroy them. The Vorthak. Commanders were confused and angry, but the real shock came when the stealth ship Quiet Thunder appeared deep in Vorthak space. Captain Jae-sung. Oh had been given the most dangerous mission in human history: penetrate enemy territory and deliver a message. The small human ship approached the Vorthak homeworld undetected. Using advanced stealth technology, it slipped past thousands of defense platforms and warships. When it reached broadcasting range, Jae-sung sent a message that was received across the entire Vorthak Empire. "This is Captain Jae Sung-oh of the Human Defense Force," the message began. "You wanted to see what humans do when threatened. You killed our children to make a point. Now we're going to make a point of our own." The message was simple but terrifying. "We know where you live. We can reach you anywhere. What happened to Kepler 442b is going to happen to every single one of your worlds. The difference is we're just getting started." High Commander Keithvar watched this broadcast from his flagship with growing concern. How had a human ship reached their homeworld? Their defenses were supposed to be perfect. "Find that ship and destroy it," he ordered. But the quiet thunder was already gone, vanished back into the darkness between stars. The message, however, continued to spread throughout Vorthak space. On the frontier world of Haven Colony, something even more disturbing happened. When the Vorthak fleet arrived to demand surrender, they found the colony completely empty. Every human had vanished. "Where did they go?" demanded the Vorthak ground commander. His question was answered when the entire planet exploded. The humans had turned their colony into a massive bomb, taking out the entire invasion fleet. Not a single enemy ship survived. The pattern was becoming clear across human space. These were not normal defensive actions. The humans were not trying to save their colonies. They were turning every world into a weapon against the invaders. Back on Nexus Prime, Ambassador Jiwoo was receiving reports from the various battles. The news was mixed. Human colonies were falling, but they were taking enormous numbers of Vorthaks with them. "How many ships have they lost so far?" she asked. So Young checked her displays. "Conservative estimate? Over 300 Vorthak vessels destroyed or severely damaged, and that's just in the first day. And our losses. 12 colonies completely destroyed. But the evacuation mission saved most of the civilian population." Jiwoo nodded. The plan was working. The Vorthaks thought they were fighting a normal war against a normal enemy. They had no idea that humans had decided this war could only end one way, with the complete destruction of the Vorthak Empire. On his flagship, Keithvar was beginning to understand that something had gone wrong. His forces were winning every battle, taking every human world they attacked. But the cost was enormous. Each victory required destroying his own ships and soldiers. "How can they keep fighting like this?" he asked his advisors. "Don't they understand they're losing?" His intelligence officer looked worried. "Sir, I don't think they care about winning or losing. I think they're trying to hurt us as much as possible before they die." For the first time, Keithvar felt a chill of fear. His species had conquered the galaxy by making other races submit through superior force. But how do you defeat an enemy that would rather die than submit? The answer came sooner than he expected. Human forces throughout the galaxy began implementing what they called the Vancouver Protocol. Named after an ancient Earth battle strategy, it was designed around a simple principle: accept any loss necessary to maximize enemy casualties. Every human ship, station, and colony became part of this strategy. Retreat was only allowed if it led to a better opportunity to destroy enemy forces. Surrender was not an option under any circumstances. The Vorthaks had expected to fight a war of conquest. Instead, they found themselves in a war of extinction. And slowly they began to realize which species was more likely to survive it. 3 weeks into the war, High Commander Keithvar was starting to understand that his forces had made a terrible mistake. The Vorthaks were winning every battle, but they were dying faster than they could replace their losses. The humans had turned warfare into something the Vorthaks had never seen before. Every tool became a weapon, every retreat became a trap, every defeat became an opportunity to hurt the enemy more. On the asteroid mining station Series 7, former engineer Daijung Moon was showing his team how to turn their equipment into weapons of war. The massive rock-moving machines that once carved up asteroids were now launching chunks of metal at enemy ships at incredible speeds. "Remember," he told his crew, "these were designed to move 100-ton rocks. A Vorthak battleship is just another rock that needs moving." His improvised kinetic bombardment system had already destroyed 6 enemy vessels. The Vorthaks kept trying to attack the station with conventional weapons, not understanding that the humans had turned the entire asteroid belt into an artillery platform. In the Proxima Centauri system, Captain Hyun Soo Jang was demonstrating humanity's new approach to naval combat. His battleship Indomitable was outnumbered 5-1 by Vorthak warships, but instead of retreating, he ordered a direct attack. Full power to engines, he commanded. Target the largest enemy ship. Ramming speed. His crew looked at him with grim determination. They all knew this was a suicide mission. They also knew it was the right choice. The Indomitable accelerated to nearly 20% of light speed before smashing into the Vorthak flagship. The explosion destroyed both ships instantly, but also took out 2 more enemy vessels caught. In the blast, the surviving Vorthaks were horrified. What kind of species willingly destroyed their own ships in combat? They're insane, reported one Vorthak commander to Kethvar. They fight like they want to die. No, Kethvar replied grimly. They fight like they want us to die more than they want to live. On Earth, quantum physicist Mi-young Seo was working on humanity's answer to Vorthak technological superiority. The enemy ships had better shields, faster engines, and more powerful weapons. But they had one weakness. They relied too much on their computer systems. If we can't match their technology, she explained to her team, we'll turn it against them. Quantum viral programs were designed to infiltrate Vorthak networks and cause catastrophic system failures. The first test was spectacular. An entire enemy battle group suddenly found their own weapons targeting their own ships. Upload this to every human vessel immediately, Mi-young ordered. Let's see how superior their technology is when it starts shooting at them. The tide of battle was slowly turning, but the cost was enormous. Human colonies continued to fall one by one. The planet New Busan was the site of the most devastating battle yet. Young Su Bei commanded the last human defense post on the planet. His forces had been fighting for 6 days straight against overwhelming odds. The Vorthaks had landed over 100,000 troops, supported by massive war machines. Sir, his aide reported, we're down to our last ammunition reserves. Maybe it's time to surrender. Young Su looked at his young soldier with sad eyes. Son, they destroyed Kepler 442b. They killed children to make a point. There's no surrender from that. He activated the emergency protocol that would overload the colony's fusion reactor. The explosion would destroy the entire city, along with every Vorthak force in the area. This is what you get for threatening our children, he said into his communicator. Knowing the enemy was listening, the blast could be seen from orbit. 50,000 Vorthak troops died in seconds, along with the last 3,000 human defenders of New Busan. But the most significant change was happening in human space itself. The entire species was transforming into something the galaxy had never seen before. A civilization dedicated entirely to war. Military strategist Chan Ho Park was coordinating what humans called the Vancouver Protocol. Every human world was now part of an elaborate trap system designed to maximize enemy casualties. The Vorthaks think they're conquering our planets, he explained to the Defense Council. Actually, they're walking into carefully prepared killing fields. Each colony was rigged with hidden weapons, explosive traps, and system viruses. Some worlds were completely evacuated and turned into massive bombs. Others were left with small human populations who would fight to the death, making the Vorthaks pay in blood for every victory. How many enemy ships have we destroyed so far? Asked Admiral Insu Bei. Over 1,000 confirmed kills, Chanho reported. Their invasion force has lost nearly 40% of its strength. And our losses? 26. Colonies completely destroyed. But the evacuation program saved most civilians. We're trading territory for enemy blood, and it's working. The psychological impact on the Vorthaks was becoming serious. Their soldiers had been trained to fight normal enemies who surrendered when faced with superior force. They had never encountered an enemy that seemed to prefer mutual destruction over defeat. On the Vorthak homeworld, emergency councils were being held. The reports from the front lines were increasingly disturbing. They destroyed an entire star system rather than let us capture it, reported one general. They collapsed the star itself. We lost 3 complete battle fleets. How is that even possible? Asked another commander. They used their own industrial facilities as weapons, turned manufacturing stations into stellar bombs. The humans would rather destroy everything than let us have it. High Commander Kethvar studied the latest.
Casualty reports.
His forces were still advancing, still winning battles, but they were bleeding to death in the process. At this rate, even total victory would leave the Vorthak Empire too weak to defend itself against other enemies. Perhaps, suggested his advisor, we should consider negotiating with the humans. Kethvar's laugh was bitter. After what we did to Kepler 442b, there will be no negotiations. This is extinction war now. Either we destroy them completely, or they destroy us. But even as he said it, Kethvar was beginning to realize which outcome was more likely. The humans had shown that they would sacrifice everything to hurt their enemies. How do you defeat an enemy like that? The answer came from an unexpected source. On the research station Olympus 3, human scientists led by Dr. Sang-Min Lee had been working on something that would change the war forever. We've cracked their shield technology, he announced to the Defense Council. Not only can we penetrate it, we can turn it off remotely. What does that mean for the war? Asked Admiral Insu. Sang-Min's smile was cold. It means their technological advantage just disappeared. From now on, this is a fair fight. The Vorthaks won't like fighting fair, Insu observed. No, Sang-Min agreed. They really won't. Across the galaxy, human forces began implementing the new technology. Vorthak ships that had seemed invincible suddenly found themselves defenseless. The humans, who had been fighting at a disadvantage for weeks, now had the tools to truly hurt their enemies. The war was about to enter a new phase, and the Vorthaks were about to learn why threatening humanity's children was the worst mistake in galactic history. 6 months after the destruction of Kepler 442b, High Commander Kethvar stood on the bridge of his damaged flagship, watching his empire collapse. The human counterattack had been unlike anything in galactic history the Vorthaks had expected to fight a war of conquest. Instead, they found themselves fighting a war of extinction, and they were losing. Sir, his communication officer reported, we've lost contact with the Fourth Fleet. The humans, they used our own weapons against us somehow. Kethvar nodded grimly. The humans had done more than crack Vorthak shield technology. They had figured out how to turn every piece of advanced equipment into a weapon against its owners. Vorthak ships were now destroying each other while their crews watched helplessly. How many fleets do we have left, he asked. 12, sir, out of the original 50. Kethvar felt old. The Vorthak Empire had conquered half the galaxy, but they had never faced an enemy like humanity. Most species fought to protect what they had. Humans fought to destroy what threatened them. In the Sol system, Admiral Taemin Park was preparing the final assault on the Vorthak homeworld. He had been promoted from ship captain to fleet admiral after the Harmony's Edge had successfully delivered a devastating computer virus to an entire enemy battle group. All ships report ready, Admiral, his communications officer announced. Taemin looked at the tactical display. 2,000 human warships surrounded the Vorthak homeworld. Below them, the planet that had ordered the genocide of humanity's children waited for judgment. Open a channel to the surface, Taemin ordered. The main screen activated, showing Kethvar and what remained of his command center. The proud Vorthak commander looked defeated, his scales dulled with exhaustion. High Commander, Taemin began, I offer you the same choice you gave humanity 6 months ago. Surrender unconditionally, or face complete destruction. And if we surrender? Kethvar asked. Your military forces will be disbanded. Your leaders will face war crimes tribunals. Your worlds will be occupied until we are satisfied you are no longer a threat to galactic peace. Kethvar was quiet for a long moment. And our civilians? Our children? Taemin's expression softened slightly. Will be protected. Unlike what you did to ours. It was the mercy that the Vorthaks had denied to Kepler 442b. Even now, facing total victory, the humans offered what they had been refused. I surrender, Kethvar said quietly. The Vorthak Empire surrenders unconditionally. Across the galaxy, the news spread quickly. The war was over. Humanity had won, but the victory had cost everything. 37 human colonies had been completely destroyed. Over 2 billion people were dead. The survivors were scattered across refugee camps and emergency shelters. On Nexus Prime Station, Ambassador Ji-Woo Kim was addressing the reformed Galactic Council. The other species looked at her with a mixture of respect and fear. 6 months ago, she began, humanity came here seeking peace. We offered cooperation, trade, shared knowledge. We wanted to be part of the galactic community. She paused, looking directly at each alien representative. Instead, you allowed the Vorthax to threaten our extinction. You watched as they murdered our children. You did nothing when they declared their intention to commit genocide against our species. The hall was completely silent. Today, the Vorthak Empire no longer exists. Their military is destroyed. Their leaders await justice. Their worlds are under occupation. This is what happens when you threaten humanity's survival. An alien delegate raised his hand nervously. Ambassador, what does humanity want now? Ji-Woo's answer was simple and terrifying. We want to make sure this never happens again. The Never Again protocols were implemented across human space within weeks. Every human colony, no matter how small, was equipped with quantum communication, arrays that could summon help instantly. Early warning networks monitored every ship movement within 50 light-years of human territory. Yoon-Ho Choi, now head of Galactic Defense Engineering, supervised the construction of automated defense platforms around every human world. These weapon systems were designed to activate automatically if any fleet approached with hostile intent. These platforms can destroy an entire battle group in minutes, he explained to the Defense Council. No one will ever again be able to surprise attack our colonies. But the most important changes were in human society itself. The species that had once been scattered across the galaxy in small, vulnerable settlements was now unified by shared trauma and determination. So Young, Nam, promoted to head of Galactic Intelligence, implemented monitoring systems that tracked potential threats across known space. Every alien military movement was recorded and analyzed. We will never again be caught unprepared. She reported to Admiral Taemin. Any species that begins massing forces against human territory will be detected immediately. The psychological impact on the galaxy was enormous. Other alien species began to understand that humanity was not just another member of the galactic community. They were something else entirely. Dr. Kyung-Ho Lim, updating his historical records, wrote, "The Vorthak War proved that humanity's greatest strength is not their technology or their numbers. It is their willingness to sacrifice everything when their survival is threatened. This makes them the most dangerous species in the galaxy when cornered." On the rebuilt world of Kepler 442b, Governor Hyejin Kang was teaching her daughter about the monument erected in the colony's central square. The monument was simple, a black wall with the names of everyone who had died in the original attack. "Why did they attack us, Mom?" her daughter asked. "Because they thought we were weak," Hyejin replied. They learned they were wrong. At the base of the monument was an inscription in every galactic language. They ignored the first law of survival: never threaten humans. This is what happened next. The inscription continued, "In memory of the 50,000 innocents murdered here, humanity pledges, never again will our children die unavenged. Never again will genocide go unpunished. Never again will we be caught defenseless." Across the galaxy, similar monuments were built on every human world. They served as reminders of what humanity had lost and warnings of what humanity was prepared to do if threatened again. The Vorthak survivors, living under human occupation, slowly began to understand the magnitude of their mistake. They had seen humanity's colonies fall and assumed the species was weak. They had never considered that humans might choose total war over submission. In his prison cell, former High Commander Kethvar wrote in his journal, "We thought we understood warfare. We thought superior technology and numbers guaranteed victory. We were wrong. The humans taught us that the most dangerous enemy is not the one with the best weapons, but the one with nothing left to lose." Years passed. The galaxy settled into an uneasy peace. Trade resumed. Diplomatic relations were restored. But everyone understood that something fundamental had changed. Humanity was no longer the friendly, cooperative species that had once sought peaceful coexistence. They were still willing to cooperate, still willing to trade and share knowledge. But beneath the surface was something harder and colder. They had learned that the galaxy was a dangerous place where entire species could be marked for extinction without warning. They had learned that mercy was often seen as weakness, and kindness as invitation for attack. Most importantly, they had learned that sometimes survival required becoming something terrible. Ambassador Jiwoo, now elderly but still sharp, gave a final speech to the Galactic Council. Humanity seeks peace. We always have. But we have learned that peace must be backed by strength, and mercy must be balanced with justice. She paused, looking at the assembled delegates. We hope you remember this lesson, because humanity will not make the same mistake twice. We will never again trust the galaxy to protect us. From now on, we protect ourselves. The message was clear. Humanity was still part of the galactic community, but they would never again be victims. They had paid the price for that lesson in the blood of their children, and they would never, ever forget it.